Hello, everybody. Hello, JD Mitra here, and I want to welcome each and every one of you back to another amazing episode on Facebook Live of the Moneymaker Mondays. This is the fourth one. In the first one, we talked about how to make effective sales calls. On the second one, we talked a lot about the mindset it takes, difference between rich people and poor people. And then last week we talked about real estate, retiring at 50 by owning real estate. We talked about cap rates. We talked about rental properties. And hey, Anu, how you doing? So today we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is, to me, the key factor in becoming successful in business and successful in life. Emotional intelligence is something, it used to be about the IQ test, but, lately it's been a bigger barometer of emotional intelligence. We're going to get into that. First, I want to actually press rewind because a lot of people asked me on last week's Moneymaker Monday about retiring, doing real estate, and a lot of people were asking about how to get into real estate with no money. How do you get into real estate with no money? And I gave my word that I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live specifically on how to do just that. But I did want to, even though today is about emotional intelligence, I wasn't planning on talking about real estate, but I do want to bring something up because I just actually got a deal that I want to just share with everybody. And without getting into a lot of details, I just signed, booked a house for $160,000. And just to tell you a little bit about this house, this is a beautiful house in Mount Vernon, and not to get into great detail, but basically this was a really good person who unfortunately had a death in the family that required her to be able to move down south and be with her family. And I was just fortunate enough that I was able to be the person that was able to assist in that and having her move on to the new chapter in her life. And be with her family, and at the same time get a great property, a property that, with a proper management, with a proper creativity, can be a fantastic property. This property that I just told you I booked for $160,000 could be flipped. This is a typical property that could be wholesaled. I'm not doing that. I'm doing what's called a 203K loan, where you can basically but you can basically get renovation monies from your lender and basically put that money into the mortgage, the 30-year mortgage for the property. So essentially it just becomes part of your payment plan. I'm also doing a 6% seller's concession, which all of this is so that I can basically pay nothing at the closing table, very little anyway at the closing table, and get a really great rental property. So that's all I'm going to say about that, because today's not about that, but I just wanted to kind of bring that up and just let you all know that we are definitely going to be doing topics on real estate, and I know that's a big interest for a lot of people in how to make money in real estate without any money. So, without further ado, today is about emotional intelligence. And one of the things I want to do is I want to start by saying a couple of quotes. And, maybe we'll start doing this at the beginning of Moneymaker Mondays, is we'll do a couple of quotes that kind of embody the talk topic. I think that that's something that is inspiring and kind of sets the context, sets the tone for what it is that we're going to be talking about. So there's a famous quote by Michelangelo. And this is when he created David, and they asked him, obviously the renowned sculptor David, how did you create David? And I'm paraphrasing here, but Michelangelo said, I simply chipped away at everything that wasn't. And that was profound to me, because I was thinking to myself, wow, as we speak about emotional intelligence, one of the things that really resonates with me is always having your vision at your forefront, always having a consciousness, a vision-based consciousness. So oftentimes we get distracted in life, we sweat the small stuff, but being able to lead with your heart, always come from an inspired place, come from a place where You're always thinking about, what is my 10-year plan? What is this all about? Who are the people that win when I win? Who are the people that succeed when I succeed? So I believe that each and every one of you has a life purpose. Each and every one of you has a destiny to fulfill on, whether you believe it or not, whatever you want to call it, your calling in life, your destiny. But there's a direct correlation with people. And, as far as emotional intelligence goes, being able to, always see the bigger vision, see the macro, even in the micro, and never take things personal like we often do in life. That's just human nature for us to get distracted by the small stuff. So the great quote by Michelangelo, and I want to follow that up with another quote. This quote is by Thomas Jefferson, also phrased in the form of a question that he answered. And the question was, well, how did you invent the light bulb? And Thomas Edison responded by saying that I created the light bulb by finding out 2,000 ways how not to make the light bulb. And again, just super profound to me, because it speaks into something that I feel is really powerful, which is that success is just a series of failures. It's just a series of trial and error, and tweaking things, and trying again and over. And a lot of times it's not about who's the most gifted, but it's about the person that's willing to stand the test of time and just continuously get back up and get back up and get back up. And, even when a person's faith is challenged, being willing to stand the test of time, if not for you, but for other people, for others that follow you, for others that depend on you. And I think about the great Mother Teresa that was, who came to my country and in my town of Calcutta in West Bengal, India, and loved these Indian orphans. To be very honest, in a greater way than my own fellow Indians loved and embraced their own brothers and sisters. And she was really kind of like somebody that just was kind of like the example for us. And, for those of you that don't know, Mother Teresa had her own challenges, which came out later in her diaries about her own faith, and, just makes her human. We all have challenges in some aspect of life, but she wasn't, avoidant of that. Like she's susceptible just like we are, but it never was something that affected her ability to take committed action on a daily basis. So whether you're challenged, whether you're somebody that feels that your life hasn't dealt you the proper deck of cards, I'm here to tell you that there are just amazing people who you don't hear about. You don't hear about their small stories because they were never about the small stuff. They were always about the big stuff. And so you never hear, who knows? Maybe like Martin Luther King, maybe he had a pollen allergy, or Mahatma Gandhi, maybe he had, a bad ankle. But you never hear those stories. You never hear about the small stuff because they were always about the big stuff. So, that's the second quote. And the last quote, and I'll start the talk. The last quote is, and I don't know who said this, maybe one of you can help me and tell me who said this, but the quote goes something like, the harder I work, the luckier I get. Maybe somebody can Google search that. But it's a testament to the fact that I believe that luck is when hard work and success meet. Success is where hard work and luck meet. So you're working it, and then all of a sudden, like, the universe conspires in your favor to kind of throw you something, throw you a bone, and give you like this opportunity, a doorway to walk through. And all of a sudden you've got this great story about how you didn't know that this was going to happen to you, but it happened to you. But really, it was you creating those opportunities. So the harder I work, the luckier I am. So, how does this relate to emotional intelligence? Well, it's funny because before I got on this talk topic, I was getting prepared to talk about this, and I was writing my notes down. By the way, I have notes, so if you guys want to take notes, ain't no shame in my game. I've got tons of notes that I like to keep in front of me, and I recommend that each and every one of you do the same and take notes. It's one of the great ways to learn. But my son was talking to me about this talk topic about emotional intelligence. So I was talking, he's 11 years old. I was like, so what does it mean to you? What does what do you hear when you hear emotional intelligence? And bring them on camera. I should really bring them on camera. So my son was talking about emotional intelligence, and he said that I think it has something to do with controlling your feelings. So I was like, I said, okay. I said, anything else? Is anything else that come to mind? And he basically said that, well, I think it has to do with your feelings, but it's like not just how you feel, but why you feel the way you feel. And I was like, wow, that's pretty profound. That's my boy, 11 years old, and he's like, telling me about emotional intelligence. It was a proud moment for me. But basically, about getting to the essence of the core feeling. Getting to the essence of the core feeling as to what it is, not just how do you feel, but why do you feel the way that you feel. So this is a really big part of being emotionally intelligent is understanding the psyche, understanding your own beliefs about something, understand how your outlook affects things, how it triggers your thoughts, how it triggers your actions in any particular moment. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to bring up. And I'll say this, that we live in a very crazy time. I mean, can we admit that we live in an insane time where nowadays there's more distractions than ever before. There's more passion than ever before, but it's almost like a passion of conflict where, people nowadays can't even talk to people that don't agree with them. And it's almost like, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat or you're this or you're that, like all these labels are cast out there, almost designed to separate us. And it's so difficult. I would say it's more difficult today than ever before. And maybe I can get an amen on this, but it's more difficult today than ever before to talk to people at the table when you don't agree with them. And, Dwight Eisenhower had a very famous quote. He said, an American mind is both liberal and democratic, and it requires both conservative and democratic. So, I think that emotional intelligence also requires each and every one of us to be willing to hear the other side, being willing to not take things personal, and being willing to be open-minded, being really willing to be open-minded, being willing to listen to what others have to say. And we're gonna tie this into business because we're gonna now correlate what we're talking about, emotional intelligence, and we're going to correlate to how it relates in business. And wanted to just mention something that I sort of started to talk about, which is back in the day we had IQ tests. And IQ tests, these were like the kind of like the aptitude tests that people would take in order to figure out whether they were going to be effective at something, efficient at something. And now more and more, it's not just about logic and reason, it's also about emotional intelligence. And this has become kind of like the new barometer on how we judge things, how we judge how well we can handle a situation. Emotional intelligence is about your mindset, having the proper mindset, the proper outlook to go into this business world or even in your relationships in your life, and not take things too personal. And I want to be very clear about this, that no one has a monopoly on emotional intelligence. Nobody has this is not like a thing that somebody figured out. Nobody can say that they're always emotionally intelligent. Nobody can say that they're always looking at the big picture. It's a moment-to-moment phenomenon. And I think there was a quote, again, I'm terrible at reciting the names, but maybe somebody else can find out. But I know the quote was something like, if you think you're enlightened, then go spend a weekend with your parents. And and it's a great thing, because we all have triggers. Each and every one of us has a trigger, and our parents in many cases are the ones to bring out our triggers in our lives, but not just our parents, many other aspects of life. And I think that being successful in business is going to have something to do with understanding your triggers, understanding, having awareness for the things that upset you, for the things that bother you. Tony Robbins, he talks about the message of pain. And this was something that, I really resonated with me, the message of pain. And what Tony Robbins was talking about as it related to emotional intelligence and the message of pain is he said that you might go home and you might be upset at your significant other because they didn't do something that you wanted them to do. It might have been an expectation, but and it's important to honor that pain because that gets to be honored as well. Like there's a reason why that message is being sent to you. But really, a lot of times when you're angry about something, it's really because deep down inside you're sad about something. So I might be mad at my mom because she didn't cook when I come to her house. But in reality, I'm not really mad. Maybe I'm sad. Maybe I'm feeling unworthy. Maybe there's like a deeper emotion, like we talked about with what my son talked about, like not just how you feel, but why you feel the way that you feel. So going deeper, going to the core essence of what really hurts, what really is the message of the pain. And then basically Tony Robbins talks about this crossroad where you have basically two choices. You can either change your perception or you can change your procedure. And again, really powerful stuff. Change your perception or change your procedure. So what Tony Robbins was referring to was you can change your perception. You can change your belief system. Like, is what I'm believing even real? Right? You could challenge that. You could be like, is this even true that this is really happening? But if it is really true to you, if it's so real to you, if it's so authentic to you that something feels so real, maybe you can't change your perception about it, but you can change your procedure about it. And I'll give you like a real quick, bacon, egg, and cheese example, really everyday example. If you're with your significant other and you are mad at them because they don't do something for you and you feel like that makes you upset, rather than getting angry at them and showing them anger, you can also you can communicate your desires in a different way. So this is just one example of changing your procedure versus changing your perception. So, that's something that in business, in the world of business, this is really important to, again, not sweat the small stuff, not take things personal. And I want to talk to you about a couple of different quadrants of emotional intelligence. So one of the quadrants I want to talk to you about is four of them. The first one is self-awareness. So self-awareness, very similar to what I was talking about before about your belief systems, knowing yourself, knowing your triggers, knowing the things that bother you, knowing the beliefs that you have about yourself, about the world at large, about your clients, about your customers, and understanding how those beliefs trigger your thoughts and ultimately trigger your actions. So, being able to ask yourself, how am I feeling at this point? Am I low energy? Am I high energy? What is it that I'm experiencing right now? And why am I experiencing that? And do I have a choice in the matter? Do I have to continue experiencing that? Or do I have a choice? Is there a fork in the road? Can I choose something other than what I'm doing right now? So that's one, is personal awareness. Landmark Education says life is empty and meaningless. And basically, if life is empty and meaningless, then the only meaning of life is the meaning that you give it. So for me, I always say, why not choose, if it's all made up, if all this stuff is made up, why not choose something that actually empowers you? Why not choose a mindset that actually empowers you? Why not choose a perspective and outlook that actually empowers you? I don't care if you think you're a superhero and you're here with a big S on your chest. If that's what's going to empower you throughout the day to go out there and win the day and go out there and slay dragons, whatever you've got to make up in your head that keeps you empowered, I think that is an effective way to go about your day, is keeping yourself empowered by any means. So your personal awareness, step one, is understanding your beliefs, how they trigger your thoughts, how your thoughts trigger your actions. The second part is emotional management. And we started to talk about this, being able to manage your emotions and not let them run you. So really asking yourself, is it real? You know, a customer, you call a customer, and you ask the customer, hey, do you need anything today? I have a truck passing by. Let's say you're in the supply business, right? I'm in the supply business. It's one of my businesses. So I might ask that. If they're abrupt and they're like, hey, listen, I don't have time for this right now, JD, and they click. Now, again, I can manage my emotions. I can, of course, feel upset about it, that, they don't care about my service. They don't want my business, or, whatever the case may be. I can make up a lot of things in my head about that. Or I can say to myself, you know what? They're busy. And, I get it, because I've been there before. Like I've been to their shop, and I know how busy they can get, and not take it personal, not sweat the small stuff. And really, understand that this is just a numbers game. Like we talked about in Moneymaker, the first one, where we talked about making effective sales calls, that, part of it is being willing to have the proper mindset to say, you know what, give people the benefit of the doubt, and move forward. Play your game. Your game is not to win that phone call. Your game is to win the day. Your game is to do your best at pretty much every moment of the day. And when your head hits the pillow, know that that you've done it all. So managing your emotions is step 2, emotional management. Basically, finding interpretations that work for you. Which leads me to step 3, which is social awareness. What do people think, and why do people think that the way that they do? So once you can start to analyze how you think, you can start to analyze how your beliefs trigger your thoughts trigger your actions. You could do the same thing with people. So you can start to think about, what is it that makes people tick and talk? And oftentimes what you'll find in business is that what people want is not actually money. It's the end result of what they're looking for. It might be peace. It might be security. It might be dependability. It might be consistency. So you have to really also see, who is your counterpart? Who are you talking to? Who is the person in front of you? Oh, hey, what's up, Daisy? And, really being able to put yourself in other people's shoes. And oftentimes I find this hard, because, a lot of times you're so fixated on your agenda, what it is that you want to create, the result that you want to have. But it's kind of like the comedy of life, because life doesn't go the way that you want it to go. Life goes the way life goes. And then ultimately it's about your ability to take the information and have it work for you, manipulate it, interpret it, whatever you want to call it, have it be something that motivates you and inspires you to continue on. So social awareness is step 3, being able to understand the mindset, why people do the things that they do. Why do people do the things that they do? People do crazy things. And at the same time, if you start to look at their situation, if you start to look at their life, if you look at their upbringing, maybe you can have some sympathy and understand, like, you know what, maybe if I had grown up the way that they had grown up, if I had the circumstances that they had, then maybe I would have the beliefs that they have, and then I would have the same thoughts trigger me that trigger them, and then maybe I would be doing the same things that they're doing, So that's step 3. And number 4, this is the 4th quadrant, is relationships. So in emotional intelligence, you live in a world with people. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. You live in a world with people. So this thing called life, and also business, is all about cultivating relationships. That's how you grow. That's how you grow in life. That's how you grow in your relationship. That's how you grow in your family. That's how you grow in business. And being able to cultivate relationships with your suppliers, with your customers, of course, and it's really how you influence people. Is by creating a vision, enrolling. There's a terminology we use in transformation, which is enrolling. So when we talk about enrolling people into something, enrolling isn't you convincing them of what to do. Enrolling is you basically taking your vision and making it the vision, like connecting people to the vision of what it is that that not only do you want, but why it would be important for them to want the same thing, why it would be important to share in that common vision. So with that, I basically went through the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence. Now I'm going to talk about some tips, some basic tips on how to succeed in this world of emotional intelligence, and in particular in business. I'm going to talk about it as it relates to business. So one of the steps is expanding your vocabulary. So when I say expanding your vocabulary, I'm not just talking about just your vocabulary in general. I'm talking specifically about your emotional vocabulary. So what do I mean by emotional vocabulary? When you were a kid, maybe you can have certain emotions like I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm scared, I'm happy. These were the basics. And as we grow older, we start to be more specific on that emotion. So maybe it's not just I'm angry, maybe I'm frustrated, or maybe I'm irritated, or maybe I'm demoralized, I'm downtrodden, whatever that vocabulary is. The more specific you could be about your emotional vocabulary, the more you're going to be able to create that awareness. We talked about in step 1, self-awareness, being able to be aware of why you feel the way you feel and what's below that, what's below the surface that you're not telling yourself, and what is the true sadness, what is the message of the pain, and ultimately what is the procedure you're going to take. Are you going to change your procedure, or are you going to change your perspective, like Tony Robbins likes to say? So that's tip 1, is being specific and expanding your vocabulary, your emotional vocabulary. The second tip that we're going to talk about is step 2, genuinely being concerned about your clients. So we live in a world where there's a lot of people that are very interesting, and where our focus needs to be if we're in business is being interested. And the most successful business people are people that are interested in their clients, interested not just in, like, for example, the owner of the business, because I've seen that so many times where I go into a store and maybe I see another salesman and he comes in and I'm waiting there and he's waiting there to see the same person, which is the owner, and there's really no acknowledgement of the whole hierarchy. What I try to do when I go into a store, a supply house where I have relationships with people, is not just having a relationship with the decision maker, but having relationships with the counter guy, having relationships with the secretary, having relationships with the bookkeeper, being willing to go out of my way to be concerned about everybody, asking them how they are, how's your kid doing? I know your kid was struggling in math last year. You mentioned that. How's he doing now? But remembering things, like genuinely caring about people. And a question I would ask each and every one of you is, how much do you care about people that cannot help you financially? I'm gonna say it again. Hopefully I can say it a little bit better this time. But how much do you care about people in business that cannot move you forward financially? And I'm going to tell you that this is the law of reciprocity. This is like the give and take of the universe. That again, the universe is going to conspire in your favor, assuming that you're giving, assuming that you're caring, assuming that you're worthy of the success. You got to be worthy of the success, and that comes from what I believe to be one of the biggest things, which is just genuinely caring about not just your clients, not just the decision makers, but everybody in the whole hierarchy, all the way down to the guy who sweeps the floor. Everybody matters, everybody counts, and everybody gets to win in front of you. You get to be the light of the world because you're the light of your world. So that's step 2. The third one, change your view on change. So I've noticed that people that are emotionally intelligent embrace change. And that's not always easy to do. I know that there's times where, a customer or client might change the rules of the game on me, and I'm like this. I'm like, oh man, wait, what are you trying to pull on me? What was wrong with the old plan? But being willing to roll with the punches, being willing to even have a plan for change. Like, what is the plan B? If do you have a contingency plan? If something should change, do you have a plan B? If a curveball does come at you in business, do you have a plan B in place? And how can you readjust and create a new win-win scenario? So life is all about win-wins. Business is all about win-win scenarios. You win equals your customer wins. You win equals your supplier wins. You win equals your workers win. You win equals your family wins. Everybody gets to win in the whole equation. And if a rule is changed, if there is change, because life is all about change, then you're still going to have the mindset of win-win. So in your mind, it's still about how does everybody win. That doesn't change. There are things that change on a circumstantial level, but the context of win-win never should change. So for you, it's always about looking at it from the perspective of how does everybody get to win and speaking it into the conversation. So, okay, you want to change the terms of our contract. Great. So, my concern is I just want to make sure everybody wins here. So you could say that. That's like something that you can actually verbally say that. And I think people they would admire that. They would be impressed by the fact that you said that. I think that that's something that, is inspiring. So, being able to embrace change, being able to, look forward to change, because I'm going to tell you something. Not everybody can embrace change. A lot of your your competitors are not going to be able to embrace change. And that is where your success is going to come from. Your ability to be flexible, your ability to be open-minded. That's really where you're going to win your clients over, is because you are so willing to roll with the punches and be flexible to life itself. So, number 4 we're going to talk about is know your strengths. Know what you're good at. Lead with what you're good at. I think that for each and every one of us, we have a personal assessment as to what we're good at. We have an idea of what we're good at. So for me, it's, being in front of people. I think my batting average automatically goes up. The more exposure I get to people, the more of me that they get to get. And I don't say that in an arrogant way, but I think that my heart really comes out. The fact that I do really care comes out. And to the extent that I can kind of put that in front of them and show them my passion, I think that works for me. Number 5, know your weaknesses. Hey, listen, I am not the most tech-savvy guy. I am not, the guy who can execute everything I'm talking about in my vision and my imagination, because maybe there's aspects of the project that I just don't have the wherewithal to execute. But knowing your weaknesses allows you to find the people that can actually fill the void of what it is that you're not good at, essentially, So I think that that's really important, is, knowing your strengths, but also knowing your weaknesses, knowing how to work around situations by getting people that are good at it, So that's step 5. Step 6, I think we kind of covered this already, but I'm going to say it again. Knowing someone's motivation. Like, what is the motivation of the person in front of you? Everybody's motivated by different things. And I'm going to tell you, in business, you think that it's money, but it's not always money. Like, underneath the money, like, what is the money for? There is a motivation. It could be lifestyle. It could be traveling. The motivation could be, like I said, just having a dependable supplier, having a person that you can talk to, having an honest supplier. Whatever the case may be, you get to show up to people based on what it is that they need. And you get to be somebody, we talked about in step 3 about social awareness, understanding your clients, understanding what are their needs, what is their desires. But like, I'm talking about like on a core essence level, like, are you talking to a mother that just wants to see her 2 children go to college? Are you talking to a father that just wants to provide a better life for him than his father didn't provide for him? Like, what is that motivation? So that's what step 6 is finding out people's motivation. And the last one is never get offended. And this is the toughest one for people, is just staying open-minded, having a thick skin. I think the most successful people are people that are open-minded, that they are hard to offend, because they're flexible and they're open-minded, and they understand that there's a bigger picture in all of this that is more important than one conversation or one relationship or one good or bad action. So keeping the vision at the forefront and not sweating the small stuff, like really staying in it. And, I think people that are emotionally intelligent are also very willing to make fun of themselves. They're self-deprecating at times. They don't have that image consciousness of, oh my God, what will people think? And I think that these are all things that are going to have you succeed, not only in business, but in life. And one other thing I wanted to say about emotional intelligence, and I call this I'm a sports guy, so I'm going to always have some sports analogies in there. So I call it the Mariano Rivera effect. So what is the Mariano Rivera effect? So for those of you that know who the New York Yankees are, Mariano Rivera, Hall of Fame closer, and he's the greatest closer of all time. But one thing about Mariano Rivera is, they're just like everybody else. He's a human being. He made mistakes in games where he lost a game because of some decision he made that didn't work out. But people that are emotionally intelligent, and Mariano Rivera, he is right at the top of the list with all the people that I mentioned before. Somebody that doesn't dwell on his mistakes, but doesn't also forget his mistakes. It's a fine line, because you don't just forget your mistake like you didn't make one, like you're just going to repeat it again. So that's not the lesson here either. But you're also not supposed to dwell in the mistake and woe is me and I'm never going to learn, and there's no cheese down that route. There's no growth there. So it's a fine line. Being able to understand where the mistake lies, and not even see it as a mistake, really see it as a growth lesson, as a learning lesson, and tweak it. Or what we like to call in transformation, so what, now what's next? Or some people like to say what worked, what didn't work, and what's next. So really it's always about the what's next. Emotionally intelligent people, they don't stay stuck. They're fluid. They're always thinking about what's next. And once again, if there's anything that I can leave you with, I believe that everything in this world is made up. I question whether we're here, but that's another Facebook Live. I'm not going to get into the woo-woo stuff, but I believe that we're all connected, and no matter how personal we may take things at times, we're all coming home to each other. One day or another, we're all from the same source. And I know that whether we're angry or we're crying or wherever, that we're all going to laugh one day. But what that means for now, because all we have is now, all we have is this moment. We don't have one day, we have now. What I can tell you about now is, in the now, we get to, just have the ability to really just love one another, not to sound too sappy, but to love one another and to have a perspective, develop an interpretation that's going to actually empower you. If it's all made up, if all of this stuff is made up, if none of this is real, then why not just make up something that's going to have you happy every day? So that's my take for today on emotional intelligence. Whether you're trying to build your client roster, whether you're trying to expand your affiliate program, whether you're trying to develop new suppliers, whatever your goals are in business, at the end of the day, it's about the four things that we talked about: self-awareness, being able to understand your beliefs, step 2, managing your beliefs, emotional management, then social awareness, which is the third one, and then ultimately all of that leads to relationships. So we are here to cultivate relationships in business and in life. And, when we have the pain, let's embrace the pain. Let's honor the message of the pain, but then ask ourselves, what are we going to change? Either our perspective or our procedure. That's basically the two choices. We change our perspective or we change our procedure. And ultimately, it's all based on our vision. What is your vision for your life? How do people win in your presence? How do people succeed? How do people win when you win? So the greatest days of your life lay ahead. I love you guys. I love doing these Moneymaker Mondays. Stay tuned for next week. I have a special one next week. It's going to be on Christmas. Yes, on Christmas. I don't take a break on Christmas. Even on Christmas, we're going to be doing one. And it's going to be a very special one. So I hope you tune in. I hope you got some value today. And I'll see you guys at the top. Take care.